So tonight we are talking about career fair prep, and specifically talking about career fair prep in a virtual world. The engineering and technology career fair is coming up next week, as well as several other career events that will be in a virtual format. So thank y'all for joining us tonight, and hope we can help to alleviate any questions you may have about getting access to the fair. And we're going to talk not only about accessing it, but just how to prepare before, during, and after. Marissa, if you'll go to the next slide. So my name is Jessica Bowers, and I am manager for career development and coaching in the Office of Career Development and Coaching, Career Development and Corporate Relations in the College of Engineering. And I have a special guest with us here tonight. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, Bianca.
Hello, my name is Bianca Wesley. I'm with Raytheon Technologies, and I'm a principal system engineer for the past 15 years with Raytheon. I'm also an integrated product team lead of about 85 engineers, as well as a section manager for 9 engineers across Kentucky, as well as Huntsville, Alabama. So welcome.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time being with us tonight, Bianca, and I'm always just glad to have an employer here to give us your perspective on how students can best prepare to interact with employers like yourself. Marissa, if you'll go to the next slide. So I already mentioned we have several career fairs coming up, and I'll mention later a couple of other employer events coming up in the least amount of time is next week's Engineering and Technology Fair on Wednesday and Thursday, the 16th and 17th. You may be interested in other Auburn career fairs that are happening later in the semester, such as the Agriculture Fair or the Civil and Environmental and Biosystems Fair. So just make a note of those as well, and know that those will be using the same virtual platform that we're talking about this evening. So in order to get us kicked off, I'm gonna start with just a brief video that gives you a broad introduction to the Career Fair Plus platform that career fairs are taking place on this year.
Hey everyone, this is Chris from Career Fair Plus, here to show you how you can host a virtual fair in the Career Fair Plus app. Hey everyone, this is Chris from Career Fair Plus, here to show you how you can host a virtual fair in the Career Fair Plus app. As you can see here, I've set up a demo virtual fair. From here, I can jump in and look at employer details just like in an in-person fair. If I decide I want to talk to an employer, I just tap the virtual appointments button to view their schedules. As you can see, employers can have multiple schedules. I'll select the schedule I want, and I can see the details about the schedule, including prerequisites and information about who I'll be talking to. I can also see what times are available to speak with this employer. I just select a time that works best for me.
I'm sorry. We're almost there.
As you can see here, it's telling me to join the Career Fair Plus video chat by tapping the link. At the time of my appointment, I just tap the link and I'll be brought to the video chat. I first need to select that I want to use video, and then I'll be given the chance to preview what I look like before knocking to request to be admitted to the meeting room. When the recruiter receives a knock request, they can see a preview of my camera and decide either to let me in or respond by putting me on hold, which lets me know they'll get to me shortly. If the recruiter accepts my knock, I'll be led into the meeting room for my appointment. After we're done talking, all I need to do is tap the leave button and I'm done. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or would like to schedule a time to talk, please visit our website at careerfairplus.com.
Okay, so that gave you a brief intro of just what the Career Fair Plus platform is and how you're going to interact with it. If you ever want to rewatch that intro, you'll find it at careerfairplus.com, the first thing that you would see pop up on that website. So, like I've mentioned, tonight we're going to talk about how to prepare for the fair before, during, and after, both in terms of just the technical components of using the Career Fair Plus app and platform, as well as the components of preparing for a fair that would always be part of going to a career fair. Okay, so first we need to talk about how to get access to the fair. So since it's all taking place on the Career Fair Plus platform, the first thing you need to do is download the Career Fair Plus app in the Apple's App Store or the Google Play Store. I'm going to suggest that you allow notifications just because we're able to send reminders so that you don't miss anything that's going on or forget to bring something that you need to bring with you. So once you download, you'll select student or candidate as opposed to employer. You'll search for Auburn University since there's a number of different universities that are using the platform, and then you'll select which event you want to look at. For our purposes right now, we're talking about the Engineering and Technology Fair. However, you'll select day 1 and day 2 separately since there's different employers coming on both days. So once you download the app, you want to create your account and put together your profile. I will say that when you download and open the app, there's a few places that you click to before you're prompted to create that profile. So you're actually going to select the event like we just talked about and click on a button that says meetings before you're prompted to make your own profile. So once you do that, you'll make sure to use your Auburn email address to set it up. That's the only way you'll be able to access the fair is making sure that you're using that Auburn address. Here's the other components that are involved in your profile. Not all of them are required, but you'll see the indicator of which components are. If there's things that you don't have, like a LinkedIn profile, that's okay not to include that. But if you have one that is a completed profile, feel free to put that in there as well so that employers know that they can go and get more information about you there. Some of the information in your profile is also going to be used to signal to an employer if you meet a prerequisite, which we'll talk about in a minute. But just keep that in mind as you're filling out that profile with your major and your class year, GPA, and so forth. So what you're going to do is identify employers who are attending. Like I mentioned, there's going to be different employers attending on Wednesday and on Thursday. So you'll want to look at both lists of employers as if it's 2 separate events. So you can also put a star next to them indicating this is a favorite and create a favorites list so it's easy for you to go back to. The next part the next thing you do is reserve specific meeting times with each employer. So as you're identifying the employers who are attending, that's going to give you a sense of, do I want to meet and talk with any of these companies? Marissa, if you want to go over to the web browser, we'll take a quick look at what that looks like. So at careerfairplus.com, we can click on the fairs link there at the top. And then find Auburn University. And then select our event. So you can look at this here without having an account. We're just looking at this from the browser page. Everything I've talked about so far, though, it's important that you're downloading the app, creating your profile, and accessing the employer meetings from the app. You cannot do that portion from the browser. If there's any problems with just being able to access the app on a smartphone or having a mobile device that is functioning well, you can stop by the University Career Center in Mary Martin Hall on the 3rd floor and utilize one of their iPads to create your account and schedule your employer meetings. And from there, you'll be able to use the browser after that. So just wanted to take a quick look on here at how you're going to see the employers listed. There's that star button so that when you're logged in, you can indicate favorites and it will save that for you. You can see if we were to scroll down on this HORE program management page, it does provide some overview of the company. Some of them have more detail than others. Leads you to their web link, indicates the majors that they're recruiting for, as well as position types, school years, and any requirements for work authorization. One thing I want to point out about the majors recruited, that listing there and the list that employers are selecting from to indicate the majors they're recruiting, those are not Auburn specific majors. They're general majors that are used for a variety of schools on the platform. So just keep that in mind when you are looking at this information on each employer page, as well as if you were to filter employers that you're looking for by major, you might want to select more than just your one specific major and look for multiple that are at all related to your discipline. And that way, anything that's related to what you're studying is going to help pull up an employer for you, because they may have selected things that are not entirely synonymous with your Auburn major. Okay. Marissa, I think we can jump back over. Thanks. Okay, so beginning today, the window opened for you to begin reserving meetings with employers. So, when we have a career fair that is happening in person rather than virtually, you would just stop by a table and begin to chat with recruiters from different companies. But since we're doing it virtually, it's going to occur in a more planned fashion so that you're not virtually standing in line for a long time, right? So you're going to be able to reserve meeting times with employers based on who you saw in reviewing and identifying who's coming that you want to talk to. Again, you're going to be doing this part in the app. So starting today, that opened up for you to begin requesting meetings and making those reservations. Some employers are indicating prerequisites in order to schedule those meetings. So typical prerequisites might be a specific major. I know I just talked about majors being not Auburn specific, and that is when you are filtering or when it says majors recruited. when employers indicate a prerequisite for a major, that is Auburn specific because it's pairing with the major that you're indicating in your profile. So just want to mention that because it is a little bit confusing that there's majors that are not Auburn specific that you're going to see on the employer pages when they're indicating majors recruited or when you're filtering your search. But then you might also experience an employer prereq where it's looking for a specific Auburn major. So if you are encountering prerequisites when trying to schedule, the app will tell you which one you don't meet if that's the case. So you're not guessing what it is. It'll let you know. And as you see on the screenshot there on the slide, when that's what it looks like if I don't meet a prereq, and then I just click into that time, one of the time slots for it to tell me which one I don't meet. When you're scheduling, those meetings are going to be 10 to 15 minutes based on how the employer has set them up. And it will not allow you to schedule meetings that are back to back. You have to have at least a 10-minute buffer between them. There are occasionally employers that will indicate additional prerequisites, such as before this meeting, go and look for this specific position number on our website and review the position listing. So you might come across things like that. Okay, so I'm going to pause right there because those are kind of the technical components of accessing Career Fair Plus app and doing what you need to do to create your profile and access the employer meetings. Before we move on to here are the things that you're going to do to be prepared for those employer meetings and to engage in them. I just want to take any questions about what we discussed thus far. If you have a question, please go ahead and put it in the chat box and I'll respond to those before we move on. How many employers or recruiters should you try to schedule with per day? I don't really, I don't think there's a magic number. I sometimes will recommend that you are looking for or focusing in on 5 to 10 employers at the fair. And so that may be one across both days or just one depending on who's coming on what day. Again, that's not a magic number, but just thinking about, you know, if you're really doing your research on different companies and thinking about where you're most qualified to potentially to be a candidate for, it's probably not going to be 60 companies. So it could be a little more than what I initially recommended, but I think it needs to be a number that you're taking the time to look into each of those and see, is this a place I'm really interested in? Can I put in the time to do some research on each of these and prepare for those meetings? And then making sure that within your school day, you can commit the time for each of those meetings to occur. So like I said, that's just an initial recommendation, but it might be more than that if you can make time for more meetings and the research that goes into being prepared for those. What does it mean if the company has no meeting times listed? Thank you for that question. There are some companies who have not yet listed or made their meeting times available. And we're notifying them to remind them to do that. So if you have seen a company that just doesn't have any in there, keep checking back because we're prompting them to add those meeting times. You may also find some companies who their meetings have filled up already, and they may be adding more if they're able to do that to put another recruiter on for that day. So if there are companies that have filled up that you're interested in, please check back on those as well.
I'm going to chime in there because I see one for Raytheon Technology. So I was made aware right before this phone call, we just pulled the, we're completely booked. So I'm going to make phone calls after this meeting to see if I can get some more recruiters, as Ms. Jessica just represented. So I would just say, please continue just to check.
Great. We have a question that says, I noticed there are quite a few employers who don't have doctoral listed, so I'm not able to schedule a meeting, but they have masters available. Is there a way for me to still reach out to the employer? Yes. So oftentimes the employer will list their LinkedIn profile within the company information. So that is one additional way to reach out. There is, there are a couple other ways that my colleague Marissa Miller, another career coach in our office, or I can help you think about how to get contact information for recruiters through some tools like Career Shift or LinkedIn. So you could reach out to the recruiter. They also may have, indicated we want seniors or masters, and it doesn't mean that a doctoral student isn't qualified. It may just be that that wasn't their initial focus. So you could also put into your profile that you have a master's. That would let you in the door, so to speak, for that past that prerequisite so that you could schedule the meeting. Okay. What does it mean if I don't see the red, you don't meet all the prerequisite message, but it doesn't say that you meet them either? I'd probably have to see more specifically what that situation is to be able to respond. So if you want to put that in an email to me, I'll be happy to brainstorm that with you and see what that specific situation is. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on from there to talk about how to prepare for the fair beyond just getting on the app and scheduling the meetings. So, and you've gotten on the app, you've completed your profile, which is uploading the most recent version of your resume. You are reserved those meeting times. So now you've jotted them on your calendar and you want to be prepared for those in about a week. So you're going to, again, do some research on the company so that you can tailor your approach, tailor your conversation to who that company is and what they do. You can look up what kinds of products and services they offer, work with, who their clientele typically is, see what information you can find about just what the company culture is like, or where they've been in the news recently, what kinds of, if they've had any acquisitions or big projects that have been in the news. And then you're going to prepare specific questions for each company. So I recommend, maybe you make one cheat sheet per company so that you have some notes for each of those meetings in front of you. Not that you're going to read them off like a script, but part of the benefit of being in this virtual environment is that's pretty easy to have in front of you next to your computer. Ms. Bianca, can you share any tips with students on, questions that you find particularly impressive from a candidate, or just additional ways that they can do that research to tailor their approach?
Yes. So one thing that is always very critical when talking to students for me, if a student shows interest. For example, if I ask, what is your major? What are your interests in your long-term or short-term goals? If a student is able to provide feedback, if I would like to go into, say I'm a mechanical engineer, I would like to go under the design phase of a project. I'm interested in structural analysis and thermal analysis, opposed to, well, I just want to be a mechanical engineer. At least the depth of it allows you to see where is this individual will possibly fit. Another thing is, as you ask questions or while doing your research, if you find an interest, what tools are you using? So one thing, once you get your questions together, if you can ask questions back, because this is like a social engagement that's taking place between the employer and yourself, is what tools, if you're a mechanical engineer, I have a background in mechanical engineering as well, so I'm gonna use that one a lot. What tools do you use for your modeling? Do you use Creo, where if you're a system engineer and you use the model-based system engineering, blind out if the company have things on their website that talk specifically to model-based system engineering and you're familiar with it, ask about Rhapsody. Or do you use Rhapsody to do model-based system engineering? Are you familiar with the system engineering V? Is those things that make you stand out, that lets you know that you've done research in it, the company, but also you have an understanding of information that you know as well. Back over to you, Jessica.
Great, thank you. Marissa, if you'll go to the next slide for us. Okay, so you're preparing specific questions for each employer, doing your research to know a little bit more about each of those organizations and what they do, what their products, services, clients are. You'll want to also make sure that you have created or revised a resume and that the most recent version of that is uploaded to the Career Fair Plus app. So that was a component of creating your profile. Just a technical note there, there's lots of different formats that it'll allow you to upload with. I'm going to suggest that you make your resume into a PDF format just so that none of the formatting changes on you when the recruiter opens that up.
And
so make sure, go ahead.
And one thing as well, I know Auburn have a lot of different workshops that help with resumes. You got to remember, recruiters, we look at sometimes almost 100 or more resumes at a time after you go through the career fair. Then it goes through multiple phases of it. Some small things, it's always good to have someone else look at your resume to see an approach, because a lot of times you might overlook, you can review a document 1,000 times, but you might have grammar errors or other things where you fill in the blanks in your mind. But when someone else is seeing it for the first time, they don't understand the contents and what's being provided.
So that's something that the Engineering Development Office can certainly help with. As you see there, we have a weekly session on Monday afternoons at 3 o'clock. That's actually less about reviewing your resume and more about teaching you how to build it and write those descriptive statements, those bullet points that really pack a lot of punch to them when you're trying to describe, here's what I did in this role and why it matters. Other tools that you can use are VMOC, which is going to give you instant feedback based on AI technology that reviews your resume online. You can access that through your Handshake account or the University Career Center website. Other tools are the University Career Center Job Search Guide. And then, of course, individual appointments that you can schedule in our office or again with the University Career Center, and you can schedule those on Handshake. Part of what we do when working with you on a resume is also just to think about how to customize it so that it is most relevant to your reader. So we might rearrange the content in a way that beyond the education section at the top of the page, the next thing that the recruiter is going to see is the experiences that you've had that are most related and relevant to them. So work on that resume.
And I'm gonna add one more thing in there. If it's on your resume, please be willing to talk about it. A lot of times when I see resumes and I ask a question, and when individuals are unable to talk about the information on their resume, it gives a false sense of, is this true? Is this fact? So just make sure you stay true to the information that, stay true to yourself when writing your resumes. This is not an opportunity for you to provide a bunch of opinions. Please try to stick to the facts.
Thanks, Bianca.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so continuing to prepare for those employer meetings, you are next going to prepare and practice a personal introduction, also known as an elevator pitch. So this is a 30-second to 1-minute introduction where you're just introducing who you are. You're not going into great detail about experiences on your resume. You're just saying a little bit about yourself. So I'm going to show you an example here in a second, but also wanted to mention just that you're at that point also thinking about, okay, where am I going to hold these meetings? Am I going to be at home? Am I going to be on campus? And if so, where? Really thinking about where is a quiet space with an appropriate background and that I can use, and it be an appropriate and professional setting to talk with recruiters. So just so you know, we do have some interview rooms in the career development office. If you're interested in using one of those, the contact information is there on the slide for how to reserve. You could also use the study rooms in Brown Copel, and those are reservable on the DIBS website. Sorry, I don't have that link here on this slide, but I can get it to you if you aren't familiar with it. Or if you're ever in the building, there's a QR code next to the signs next to the rooms. So those are a couple of options if that would be better for you than maybe being at home as you're trying to find quiet spaces for these meetings. Okay, so here is an example of a personal introduction, and we're also going to include a elevator pitch guide for you and attach it in the chat box at the end of the workshop tonight. So you'll get some follow-up materials on this. But like I mentioned, this is a 30-second to 1-minute intro where, you know, once I enter the room with the employer, Ms. Bianca might say to me, and we can practice that a little bit. I might say,
Hello. Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Bianca Wesley. I'm with Raytheon Technologies. Your name?
As you know, I'm Jessica Bowers. I am a senior engineering student here at Auburn University. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Not a problem. What brings you by our booth today?
So at this point, I would launch into, here's a little bit about what I have an interest in, here, experience that I've had, and making sure to include when I'm graduating and the kind of opportunities that I'm looking for. So you can see the example on the screen. I mentioned some specific experience there and what kind of opportunities I'm hoping to talk about. which I'm also keeping in mind, okay, I already know from looking at this company, here's what they're recruiting for, and here's what their company does. So I'm going to try to adjust this a little bit where I can to make sure it's most relevant to my listener.
And then be ready. I'm going to give you all a hint. Please be ready to answer the question, are you willing to relocate? Especially if you're looking for an internship, as well as a full-time position. Because you'll notice a lot of the companies out there, including Raytheon Technologies, we're around the globe. So if you're limiting yourself to say, no, at the start of a conversation, say, oh, I'm only interested in staying in Alabama. You don't want the recruiter to shut down in a sense of, okay, I'm not looking for Huntsville today. I'm looking for 49 more states, but they're only concerned about the one I'm not looking in. So make sure you don't close the door initially. And one thing as well, she's interested in automated systems. Oh, so why are you interested in automated systems? And then we'll probably tag into things about the company. So it lives a gateway for communication. So unlike an interview, just be mindful, this is not an interview per se. This is more so you're stopping by the booth, and they call it on our side a booth, and it's a dialogue. As if I don't know if anybody's ever went to the career fairs previously where you literally stop by the booth and like, hello, my name, and it's quick spills. It's just you're going to have it in a different environment now. So just be mindful, and we recognize if your camera drop off, it's okay, because this has happened earlier this week. Someone's camera dropped off. It's okay to put in the chat, my camera dropped off, but we could still hear each other. We was able to have a dialogue and conversation. We recognize this is new territory. Please try not to say profane language with your camera drop off because you don't know what to do. Be mindful you're still, we probably can still hear you. So those are just tad bits as you progress through. And just take deep breaths and have a glass of water handy.
Those are great tips.
Turn it back over to you.
Thanks. All right. Another component of preparing for those meetings, just be prepared to dress like you would to go to an in-person career fair. Dressing professionally. There is still the campus career closet is still available in the University Career Center on the 3rd floor of Mary Martin Hall. If you want to get any professional clothing for next week from the career closet, you can make appointments to go and check out the closet by reserving an appointment on Handshake. Marissa, if you'll go to the next slide. Here's just some more specific guidelines on what it entails to dress professionally. There's reference in professional settings to business professional dress or to business casual dress. When we're talking about a career fair, whether it be virtual or in person, we're talking about business professional dress. So again, these are some of the guidelines on those. Obviously, as you can see, the items I marked through are not going to be as relevant in the virtual setting since we can't see all of you, but just things to consider as you're determining what you're going to wear when participating in your employer meetings.
May I chime in on there? Because sometimes we end up having to stand up and we forget that we're professional from our top half of our body is professional. And you believe it or not, I have had an experience where someone forgot they had on pajamas the second half of it, but they had to stand up. So just be mindful.
Great tip. Okay, so we've done our preparation. We've gotten on the career fair app, made your profile, identified employers attending, reserved your employer meetings. and then done their research and preparation for those meetings. So on the day of, and while this is happening, here's some things to keep in mind. I mentioned that in order to reserve the employer meetings and make your profile, all of that has to happen on the mobile app. But when it comes to the meetings themselves, then my suggestion is going to be that you carry out those meetings on the desktop. So just like we demoed earlier, going to careerfairplus.com and navigating to the fair there, the only difference will be that you'll actually log in on the browser, and then you can enter your meetings from the browser. And that way, you know, you don't have your phone kind of in front of you and the screen moving around or trying to make sure it stands up. You can have a more stable camera and have, again, your notes accessible in front of you. So we talked a little bit already about making sure you're in a quiet space, appropriate background behind you, removing any distractions. Secure internet connection, just being mindful of that and where you feel confident about the internet connection when you decide where you're going to take your meetings. You know, and things happen, like Ms. Bianca already mentioned. There's things that we often can't control for. I had some technical difficulties earlier tonight, which is why my colleague Marissa is moving slides for us. So, you know, as much as you can, prepare and test things out in advance and be mindful of these different factors that are in your environment. But if something goes wrong, part of what you're including in your profile is your phone number so that you can get it on the phone with a recruiter if something happens. And the most important thing too is just if something doesn't go how you plan, then to react in a way that you're remaining calm and confident as much as possible. So just remember, take that deep breath and present as confidently and in as prepared a fashion as you can. You've done the preparation that we've already talked about, and you're just ready to confidently present yourself to that employer, which smiling is helpful in doing that. So don't forget to smile. I also wanted to mention here that there's a link there in the tools section where you can access some virtual backgrounds that will work with Career Fair Plus. So that's an option as well, to create a virtual background. There's also, for technical difficulties that you may experience on the day of, there is a help desk, and you can access it in the Career Fair Plus app. When you're in the selected event, you would just click help desk, and that's going to take you to a Zoom room.
And one thing I want to add, about take a deep breath. You'll have multiple a day. Say the first one is not as crisp as you would like. Please don't take the old baggage into the rest of the meetings. Almost treat it as that's the first one. Now move to the next one. It's a brand new start at each new door as it open for these meetings.
That's a really great point. We would often encourage you when we're at an in-person fair to do a little bit of a warm-up by going to a table where maybe you're not quite as invested as you are in the second or third table. I know that as an employer, you would never want anyone who's not 100% invested to come talk with you. So certainly you wanted to be places that you're interested in, but just to have some of those warm-up experiences that help kind of get your energy flowing and help you practice. The advantage of the virtual setting is that at least you can practice the virtual experience beforehand by jumping on Zoom with a friend even though it's not quite that employer experience.
And you bring up a great point, because it's been plenty of times in hotel rooms, are checking in at a hotel when it first occurred. Actually, I was in Auburn, Alabama, with you guys going to a career fair, but someone was there, did not know me, and stopped by and started asking questions and different things as a mock. And then it ended up being like a little mock interview taking place. And I realized she's practicing her elevator speech right here to see how would I respond to various questions. And it seems to be between students at Tuskegee and Auburn, I recognize around career fair times. And I don't know if that's something Auburn and Tuskegee are coaching, but I think it's a good thing to practice those elevator speeches and all as well. So I agree.
Right. Marissa, if you'll go to the next slide. Okay, so you prepared for those meetings taking place and got in the right mindset and in the right environment, in a meeting space that's quiet. So you're going to attend the meetings. You're going to locate the company that you've signed up with in the platform. And as you saw in the demo video earlier, you're going to make sure that your video is on, and then enter the video chat at your scheduled time, where you'll virtually knock on the door of the waiting room. Employers will be able to see at that point a preview of your camera. So make sure that you're not checking your teeth or anything, because they'll see a preview of you when you knock on the door. They may go ahead and let you in at that point, or they may ask you to wait for just a moment. Once the meeting starts, just be mindful of some of these interaction pieces, like in a virtual meeting, trying your very best, and I have to remind myself of this too, to look actually at the camera rather than at the screen, because that's going to help to mimic the eye contact that we would want to put in place if we were talking in person. You want to be mindful of your body language and your movements. I was on a call one day with someone who was in a swivel chair, and they kept moving their feet. And I was really distracted because those movements were, I was having to follow them as they were talking. So be mindful of your body movements as well as your body language. Are you kind of slumped over and crossing your arms, or are you presenting more kind of wide open, which helps to convey your confidence? Again, you're going to begin with that personal introduction. You're going to have a copy of your resume in front of you, just so you can reference the same thing that the employer is seeing. And you're going to ask your prepared questions. As you're wrapping up the meeting, you're going to discuss any next steps. So as Ms. Bianca's already mentioned, this is not an interview, but it is an initial conversation where you're discussing, hopefully a mutual interest as a candidate and in the company. And there should ideally be some next steps that you want to note of, what do I need to go do after this meeting to follow up or follow through, whether that's go apply for this specific posting on this website, or contact this person, or get in touch with me next week. So make sure that you're discussing any next steps that need to occur after the meeting and making note of those.
So
you actually just muted, Bianca.
Yes. See, technical difficulties.
That's right.
So one thing that that I want to make sure is very key. A lot of times after these dialogues, we ask for students to go in and apply for a rec. If you was to go and apply for the rec, then it puts you in a pathway, or we tell you to go to a website to look and see what you're interested in. If you do not follow the next steps of going to the website, when we go and pull your name back out of the system, it shows that you haven't applied to anything. It just shows, okay, this individual we talked to at a career fair, but they didn't take initiative on their side to go a step further and look at additional items. So please follow the next steps. And as well, if a specific rec is given, that is key as well. And it's not just recs. If they have additional actions that need to follow, some companies might say send an email or a phone number or different things. Please follow up, because you're eliminating yourself from the pool. You got to remember, it's millions of students who graduate each year are looking for internships. So just be mindful and finish through.
So make sure to follow up. Okay, I'm looking at our time and know that we're getting close to time, so I'm gonna speed up here on what we're gonna cover and see how far we can get. And I apologize if we go a few minutes over. So again, on the day of, you might also look for employers that are holding a drop-in room. There are not a lot of these in terms of what I've seen available thus far, but some employers are opening up a drop-in room where multiple students can enter at once. It's open for multiple people to go into without a scheduled meeting. If you plan to do that, just be mindful that there may or may not be other students in the room, and still plan to have some questions prepared, and be confident in asking those, even if you're among other peers. So again, as you're wrapping up with recruiters, making sure that you know any next steps. Can you follow up? Obtaining that recruiter's contact information. Since we're not in person, they can't just hand you a business card with their contact info on it. So making sure that you're asking them for that information if you are going to be following up with them. And then make notes once you finish that meeting, so that it's fresh on your mind what you discussed and what you need to do. Okay, so after the fair is over, you're then going to take that action, right? We often will suggest send a thank you note to the employers that you talked with. No, it wasn't an interview, and you're not sending an interview thank you note. It's just I really appreciate you taking the time to recruit at Auburn to talk with me at the Engineering and Technology Career Fair. I really enjoyed speaking with you about the specific topic that we discussed. So making it unique to each employer. Again, if you hopefully got that contact information in the meeting, if for some reason you weren't able to obtain that, you can use things like LinkedIn or the career shift tool in Handshake to access employer contact information. Like we already went over, making sure that you're following up on any specific action that the recruiter mentioned. And you might also, if there, for instance, is a company that you're really interested in and there wasn't a specific position that was going to fit for you, you might consider asking the employer, is there anyone in the company that you could connect me with so I could arrange an informational interview? I'm still really interested in the company and would like to learn more. And that might just be a good way to learn about someone in a role similar to what you might like to be in the future, and to make an additional connection in the organization. There may also be some events that companies are doing beyond the career fair that you could attend those recruitment events as well. And that's just another contact to reconnect with the same company. And I know we're going to mention a few of those here in a moment that we know are taking place this fall. All right, a few more tips from employers. I'm not going to read each of these, and in fact, we're going to share these slides with everyone who attended by attaching them in the chat box before we close out tonight. So you can come back to these, but these were collected this summer through an employer survey that we sent out, and lots of employers were excited to offer specific feedback to help you be successful in this virtual recruiting environment. Okay, so those additional employer events that are coming up, there are some region-specific events that the Career Development Office is organizing, and those will be on Career Fair Plus as well. So the Birmingham Industry Day and Huntsville Industry Day in October. And then there are also companies who are doing their own recruitment event for you to learn more about the company and opportunities. And a couple of those are listed here. Ms. Vianga, did you want to mention anything in particular about missiles and movies?
Yes. So we will be having a virtual missiles and movies class. So a lot of times you watch movies and you see missiles on there, like White House Down, oh boy, so many, Battleship, and multiple things with missiles in there. So in this interactive course, you will be learning about missiles in movies and also learning the facts versus fiction in regards to it. It's interactive. It's going to be virtual. I know last year we was able to have it on campus, but it still will be exciting. And that will be on the Zoom platform as well. So please stop by and attend the October 28th Missiles and Movies. And it is not a lecture. It is not a lecture.
Yeah. You can get the details about any of those events and search for others at the link that you see there. Finally, we've got just a couple more career prep events related to the career fair that are coming up on Monday regarding resume prep, and that occurs every 3 p.m. And then also the evaluating job offers and salary negotiation workshop for after the fair. So I just want to, I know we covered a lot of content and tips tonight, but wanted to remind you that if any of this is information you want to follow up on, or if you want to connect with the Engineering Career Development Office anytime throughout the semester, we are available for virtual appointments, and you can self-schedule, reserve those on your Handshake account. Normally, we would have in-person meetings, which are located in Brown Copel. So that's where we are, just so you know, for the future, but holding all of those appointments virtually on Zoom this fall. So I think we are 2 minutes over time. I did pretty well with that. If there are any questions that you want to put into the chat box that you have since the last time we did Q&A earlier in the session, I'll be happy to answer any questions now. I know we had one about to wear your hair if you are a male with long hair preparing for professional meetings like the employer meetings. I would suggest having it back in a ponytail or tied back, just so that it's out of your face and looks professional and well kept for the meetings. Someone asked how long the meetings with recruiters typically go. Those are for 10 or 15 minutes. And I believe you'll be able to see the duration of it when you schedule. The what was the date of the salary negotiation workshop, October the 14th. And again, that link there, eng.auburn.edu/career/events is where you can get specific details about any of the events for this semester. All right. Well, thank you all for being with us tonight. We put several resources for you in the chat box, so make sure that you download those. It is the resume guidelines, the elevator pitch guide, as well as the slides from this presentation.